Alright, so to get started with this soap, you're going to need a cutting board, a cutting instrument. You're also going to need a 4-cup measuring bowl. If you want to do both at the same time, you can do that, or what we're going to be doing to see if we can achieve our desired product, as you saw in the beginning, we're going to try to melt them at separate times just to let the bases harden. And then you're going to also need some fragrance. I'm using the Nature's Flavors Organic Caribbean Coconut, and you're going to need a pipette for the fragrance and your soap bases. I'm going to be using oatmeal soap base and honey soap base, and the idea behind this is that this is going to be at the bottom, and then this is going to be filling up the rest. So we're only going to need about half of each of these little bricks, so you're not even going to need the whole brick of these. So I'm going to start by cutting my oatmeal base up, and then we're going to put them all in here and melt it. So I'm just going to take my cutting tool, and I'm just going to eyeball about half. Okay. And then you can save that other half for another project if you have one in mind. So I just didn't want to cut up that whole bar. Okay, so now I'm just going to cut these bricks into little slabs, and then cut those little slabs into pieces. This is what our soap base looks like. So it's not going to be a whole lot, but that's okay because we aren't going to need a whole lot for these soaps. So we're going to put this on in the microwave for about a minute. I usually do that long just because I don't like to do the 30-second burst, just because it takes a lot longer. If you're new to, and like very, very, very new to soap making, definitely do the 30-second burst just so that you can get an idea of how fast it melts. But for me, since I kind of have an idea, I'm gonna start with a minute and then check it. Something else I did forget to mention is your soap mold. So you are going to want to use a soap mold of your choice. I'm going to be using this heart-shaped mold that I think I got off of Amazon. It was either Amazon or Etsy, but you're going to use a soap mold of your choice, and today I'm just going to be using a soap mold that you can just pop out, and these are going to be really cute. Alright, so I just got my soap base out of the microwave. It is perfect and melted. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my fragrance, and since this is a smaller batch, I'm going to use a little bit less than I normally would. So I'm going to take my pipette, and instead of doing like 5 or 6 pipettes worth, I'm going to do about 2. Okay, and I'm just going to put my pipette back in that fragrance because we're going to use it later. And in this recipe, I'm not going to use any colloidal oatmeal or anything like that. For this, I'm just using my soap base and my fragrance, just for some super simple soap. Okay. And if you want to, you can also use some rubbing alcohol to burst the bubbles at the top, but that's up to you. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring my soap mold over here. Okay. And what we're gonna kind of do is line about a quarter of the soap mold. So we're not going to fill up the whole soap cavities with this. We're only gonna do about a quarter full. So just gonna kind of show you what that looks like. So we have measured those out. So now what we're going to do is we're going to let those set, and then after a little bit we're going to come back, because what's going to happen if we just immediately pour more soap into this, it's all going to blend together, and we kind of want it to be different different sections. So I'm going to rinse this out. I'm going to rinse off my other equipment, and I will be back to show you what to do next. Alright, so we are at the point in the drying process where you can now like move the molds and they won't really go anywhere, but we're not quite to the point where we can pour the honey base into it yet, because it's still a little bit too malleable, and you want to kind of let it harden as much as possible before you add your next layer on. So what we're going to do is I've already cut out my honey soap base. That's right here. And again, I've only used about half of the mold. So I'm going to put this in the microwave on about 30-second bursts. Alright, so this has melted. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it a little stir to get the rest of those little clumps melted. And I'm not going to pour this yet because this is way too hot, and it will most likely just melt through the soap that we have already. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of stir it and let it kind of cool down a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add our fragrance, and then we will pour. So if you remember, with the oatmeal base, I added 2 pipettes full of the fragrance. For this honey base, I'm going to add another 2 just to keep it at an even pour, dispersed amongst the soap bars. And that way we're getting our 4 pipettes full. And again, when you're making your own soap, you can add as much or as little fragrance as you want. You can add as much or as little colloidal oatmeal if you want. If you wanted to use it in this batch, you could. I just wanted to make one without the colloidal oatmeal just to show you guys how it would look without it. If you want to add your own ingredients to it, you can. It's completely up to you. I'm just showing you guys what I do for my soaps. And I do like having thicker soap bars because they last longer. I have a soap loaf mold, and once the soaps harden, I will cut those into about 4 bars. Each one yields about 4 large bars of soap, and those last me a pretty long time. And you can cut them as thin as you want or as thick as you want, but I like having a thicker bar just because it lasts longer and it's more worth your while and more worth your money. Okay, so this has cooled down some. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull these farther to the back, and I'm going to add our coconut fragrance, and we're going to do about 2 pipettes full. And we're going to stir this in. This is still pretty hot. So we're going to let this cool down just a little bit longer. So you can see how they're dried enough to the point where if I go like this, they aren't going to fall out. And that is good. So these are still warm, so these are probably just about good to have something else poured on top of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let this cool down just a little bit more, just because I don't want it to melt the oatmeal base. And what I'm going to do to make it a little bit tacky and to make it easier for it to stick together, I'm going to spritz with a little bit of rubbing alcohol. To the bases. Okay, so as you can kind of see, there's the honey base in there. And I'm just gonna take some rubbing alcohol and spritz it. Just to recap what we did here, I poured the oatmeal soap base at the bottom for about half an inch, and then once I let that harden for probably a good 20 to 45-ish minutes, I then melted my honey base, put the fragrance in, and spritz the top of the oatmeal base that also has the fragrance, and I used the back of my spoon to help ease it into the molds where the oatmeal base was, so that it doesn't just mix it into everything. So once I did that, I spritzed the top to get rid of the air bubbles, and we're gonna let these sit and harden, and then I will come back and unmold them and show you what they look like.